A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
You know what this is. It is an elegy for dead comrades and friends, for boys whose cheeks but yesterday were round with childhood, for good brothers and new husbands and sons you bore with so much pain. And now I stand in your stead above fresh graves where sleepers rest. I stand on a distant Pacific island and open my chaplain's service book to speak a memorial, not for them who can no longer listen, but for you.
The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light. This public service program comes to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today, written by Morton Wishengrad, features Kermit Murdoch as Jacob Baum and Owen Jordan as the soldier narrator. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Judge Jonah J. Goldstein.
When they buried the American dead on Iwo Jima not many months ago, a Jewish chaplain stood on the edge of an airfield before an expanse of graves and helped dedicate a cemetery. The opening and closing narrations of this story are the words he spoke.
Here lie men who loved America. Here lie Negroes and whites, rich men and poor, together. Here are Protestants, Catholics and Jews, together. Here no man prefers another man because of his color. Here there are no quotas of how many from each group are admitted or allowed. Among these men there is no discrimination, no prejudices, no hatred. Theirs is the highest and purest democracy.
I died on Iwo Jima. My name was Jacob Baum. Perhaps you ought to know why I died, and for what. But that's the story of another Jacob Baum. The Jacob Baum who was my great-grandfather, and who came to America from Germany. In the year 1848, when Jacob Baum was the editor of the Frankfurter Kurier, the people of Europe were in revolt. And this was a beginning for my great-grandfather.
Never mind the supper, Minna. I'll be working all night.
Pot roast and potatoes, Jacob.
No time.
And strudel, Jacob. Look at the crust.
Where's that editorial?
Don't you hear me, Jacob?
Something important's happened, Minna.
Well, what's more important than a good supper?
It's true, Minna. Metternich is in flight from Austria. There's commotion all over Germany. In Cologne, Koblenz, Königsberg, Berlin. This is our chance, too.
The strudel, Jacob.
Where's that editorial? Oh, thanks, Minna. Don't wait up for me.
Jacob, eat something. You've got to eat something, Jacob. You'll get bilious.
I've decided to run the editorial, Ernst. Set it up in 12-point Gothic boldface.
Listen here, Jacob. I've got a wife.
So have I.
I've got 9 children and the 10th coming.
Congratulations. Now set up the editorial.
It wouldn't look so good if the baby was born while his papa was in prison.
You won't get into trouble, Ernst.
No?
No, you're the printer. I'm responsible. I'm the editor.
All right, so I won't be arrested, but you'll be arrested.
Thanks for thinking of me.
Who's thinking of you? If you're arrested, the Frankfurter Courier doesn't get printed. If it doesn't get printed, no copies are sold. If no copies are sold, who pays me? Who pays my rent? Who pays the midwife? Who pays for my beer?
Oh, for heaven's sakes, I'll pay for your beer. Now set up that editorial, Ernst. Set it up. I'll take the consequences.
Have a seat, Herr Baum.
Thank you, Herr Bürgermeister.
I'll come right to the point.
Please do.
I have ordered every issue of the Frankfurter Courier confiscated.
Why?
I don't have to tell you why. That's my order.
Was it my editorial?
We won't discuss it, my friend.
Every word was true. I said that the king gave the People's Assembly a solemn promise to recognize the national constitution.
We don't discuss it, Herr Baum.
I said that the king has failed to abide by his promise. I said that the rest of Europe is living in the 19th century, but that Prussia is still living under a feudal despotism. Is a single word of that untrue?
Every word.
Untrue?
Yes, because I say it's untrue.
Then you're a liar.
My dear Herr Baum, you are a Jew.
I will remind Your Excellency that I am a German.
Oh, stop being naive.
Herr Bürgermeister, when I came in, you said you were coming to the point.
Here it is. In the future, you will submit every editorial to me before publication. And...
Yes?
If you have any sense, you will be careful.
Hurry, Minna. The service has begun.
Jacob, I can't keep up with your big steps.
Good Sabbath, Jacob and Minna.
Oh, good Sabbath, Rabbi. It's my fault we're late.
Strange you should be out here, Rabbi.
I've been waiting for you.
Something wrong?
Why do you have to write things the king doesn't like, Jacob?
Somebody in Prussia has to tell the truth.
The Talmud expressly declares that the law of the land and the governors of the land must be obeyed.
I know that, Rabbi. But doesn't the Bible also declare, proclaim liberty throughout the land?
Can't you be satisfied just to be a quiet, peaceful citizen of the community?
I want to be a good citizen of the community.
Yes, Jacob. You're right. I suppose I was afraid for you and Minna.
Whatever Jacob does, Rabbi, I'll stand with him.
I think you will. Come, let's go into the synagogue and welcome the Sabbath.
Baum, you're a bigger fool than I thought you were.
Thank you, Herr Bürgermeister.
I asked you to submit your editorials for censorship.
The new policy of the Frankfurter Courier is no editorials, Your Excellency.
You think I'm a baby? Whom are you fooling? Every news story in this issue is editorialized. This one, for example. There was another bloody collision in the streets of Berlin last week. Unarmed citizens were brutally fired on by Prussian troops. The people gathered before the palace of King Frederick William bearing the bodies of the dead patriots on litters and shouted, "Hohenzollern, take off your hat," and the Hohenzollern removed his hat. You call that a news story?
King William took off his hat, didn't he?
No impertinence, Herr Baum. I'm warning you. Watch out.
Thank you, Herr Bürgermeister.
Now, wait a minute. From now on, not only no editorials, but no more news stories.
You make it pretty hard to write a newspaper under those conditions.
That's the general idea.
That leaves public notices, marriages, and obituaries.
Precisely. Those are the contents of your paper.
All right, if you insist. But it's going to make for dull reading.
Precisely. The duller, Herr Baum, the better. This isn't smart, Herr Baum.
You said obituaries were all right, didn't you?
Not this kind. In memoriam, German liberty. In memoriam, King William's promise of constitutional government. In memoriam, the Frankfurt Assembly. That's enough. That's too much. Go home and pack your things.
They've been packed for a week.
Excellent. Tomorrow at noon, you will unpack them in Frankfurt prison.
My great-grandfather went to prison. He would have smiled if you'd called him a hero. Like Nietzsche's hero, all he did was shake the tree when the fruit was ripe. If you think that was a small thing to do, well, just look at the tree he shook. Jacob Baum sat in prison for 8 months. And for 8 months, because of men like Jacob Baum, Germany was close to what we call freedom. Close because people were milling in the street and standing before the palace of the king, while the king shook in his boots. And then more guns were fired, and the barricades were torn down, and blood clotted on the cobblestones. The dead were buried, and people forgot. Great-grandfather Baum was released.
I've got our passports.
What for, Minna?
We're going to America.
I'm not running away.
It won't be running away. The paper is shut down.
I'll start a new one.
With what? Our money is gone.
I'll borrow money.
Well, who will lend it to you?
I'll find someone. There's Franz Siegel.
He's gone to America.
Helmholtz.
He's dead.
Then Salzman.
Oh, it's no use, Jacob. All the liberals are dead or in exile. My sister lives in Ohio. That's where we'll go, Jacob. She sent us the money for passage. Now eat your pfannkuchen and don't argue.
I think there was something about the American earth they loved right away. Something about the people that caught at their hearts. There was no bowing, no scraping, no formality. At first, it offended them. Then it puzzled them. Then they got used to it and liked it. And then they no longer noticed it. And they were Americans. Their sons were born, and the oldest boy learned to spell by playing with the hand type in great-grandfather's print shop. Yes, Jacob Baum was an editor again. The Ohio Free Enquirer.
How does it look, Minna?
Do you spell inquirer with an E or an I?
What's the difference? The meaning is the same. That's what I like about America. Here, everyone has the right to inquire and to doubt.
Wipe the drop from your nose and stop making speeches.
Minna,
What?
you have the instincts of a shrew, but you make good pfannkuchen.
Jacob Baum, if you're going to kiss me, kiss me. I've got work to do. You smell of tobacco.
And you smell of soap.
I'm worried about something, Jacob.
Yes?
Mrs. Engels tells me they're speaking about your editorials on the slavery question.
Mrs. Engels is a nosy body.
I'm serious, Jacob. Promise me something.
Maybe it's a mean man who won't promise.
Don't do it anymore.
Promise?
Oh, you know what I mean. No more anti-slavery editorials.
You see that sign, Minna? The Ohio Free Enquirer.
Well, I didn't think you'd stop, but I had to ask. Be careful, Jacob. For my sake and for the children.
Jacob Baum was an American now. In America, in the 1850s, a man by the name of William Lloyd Garrison was putting live coals on paper. A man by the name of Lincoln was trying to make up his mind. And a young nation was moving steadily toward an irrepressible conflict. In the editorial room of the Ohio Free Inquirer, a boy, my father's father, stood by the side of Jacob Baum.
I pulled 2 proofs like you said, Father.
Did you put the block under the mallet?
Just like you showed me.
Make sure you always do. I can't have you breaking a fount of type every time you pull a proof.
What does the editorial say, Father? I can read the English, but not that.
These 2 lines?
Yes.
That's German. Vor dem Sklaven, wenn die Kette bricht, vor dem freien Menschen, zittert nicht. Tremble not before the free man, but before the slave who has chains to break. I learned that in Germany. But it's true all over.
That's fine, Father. People are going to like to read that.
I hope so, boy.
Aren't they?
I don't know. I just hope so.
Jacob, put your shoes on. There's a gentleman to see you.
There aren't any holes in my stockings. Show him in.
But he's a gentleman.
If he's a gentleman, he won't mind. Show him in.
Oh, all right, but he looks like an advertiser, and it just isn't right. It's not polite. It's rude. It's un-American.
To your good health, Mr. Baum.
It's good Passover wine, Mr. Mitchell. Not very strong, but sweet.
Your hospitality embarrasses me.
I'm sorry to hear that.
You see, I've come to discuss a rather unpleasant matter.
Yes?
Your editorials. A group of citizens find them in rather poor taste.
Do you find them in poor taste?
I do. Don't you think it rather injudicious for an immigrant to take sides in a controversial matter?
Lafayette and von Steuben took sides during the American Revolution.
That may be, but why do you present the abolitionist case and not the other side?
Mr. Mitchell, a Jewish prophet said, Haemis v'hashalom ehovu. Love truth and peace. You notice the prophet put truth before peace. But I'd be glad to print anything you give me, sir.
It's beneath our dignity to engage in newspaper controversy.
It's not beneath your dignity to criticize me. I think that's rather unfair. You're trying to stifle free debate.
You're trying to start a fire.
I've heard that fires give light.
They also burn.
It seems to me that's the chance you take when you tell the truth.
Excuse me, Mr. Baum, I'm very busy.
I beg your pardon. I didn't mean to be impolite.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you very much for the wine. Good day, sir.
Well, Heinrich, that's a sour face. Anything wrong at the brewery?
Take my advertisement out of your paper. Here, I'll pay you for tomorrow, but no more after tomorrow.
Did Mitchell send you, Heinrich?
I sell beer. People don't buy beer from people who get dragged into fights.
Was it Mitchell, Heinrich?
Why do you keep saying that?
He did, didn't he?
Listen, I've got a mind of my own. No one has to tell me that a businessman must be on good terms with everybody.
Doesn't a businessman also have to have principles?
Sure. More beer for less money in the best quality. Those are my principles.
When you die, Heinrich, I'll remember to print that for your obituary.
When I die, Jacob Baum, you won't be in the newspaper business. And unless I miss my guess, you won't be in the newspaper business next month. Mark my words, you'll be taking your sign down.
Hold the sign, Minna.
There's a drop at the end of your nose, Jacob. Here's my handkerchief.
Put the handkerchief around the sign.
Don't be sentimental. It's only a sign.
It says Ohio Free Inquirer. It's like losing a child.
No, it isn't. The sign can be put back. Now stop being sorry for yourself.
I'm not sorry for myself.
Then don't be sorry for me or for the boys.
Maybe I'll nail that sign back again.
Someday.
And if I don't, the boys will. Or their sons.
That drop is still in your nose.
I'm talking about important things, Minna.
Wipe your nose. That's important, too.
All right. It's wiped.
Now, what were you saying about the sign?
It's going up again. Perhaps in Ohio, perhaps in some other state. But it will go up.
Well, why are you raising your voice? Of course it will go up again. This is America, isn't it? I guess in America, signs like that sometimes come down, but they always get put back again. Yes, Jacob, I guess they do.
And the sign was nailed back again. Perhaps it wasn't a big sign, but it said Free Inquirer on it. I think that's the whole story. My great-grandfather came to America and put up a sign. And 100 years later, I died on Iwo Jima for the same sign. I don't say it so well. Maybe my great-grandfather said it better. Ha emes v'hashalom ehavu. Love, truth, and peace. But first, love truth.
Here before us lie the bodies of comrades and friends, men who fought with us and feared with us. Somewhere in this plot of ground, there may lie the man who could have discovered the cure for cancer. Under one of these Christian crosses, or beneath a Jewish Star of David, there may rest a man who was destined to be a great prophet, to find the way, perhaps, for all to live in plenty, with poverty and hardship for none. Now they are dead. Let us therefore memorialize those who, having ceased to live with us, live within us. Too much blood has gone into this soil to let it lie barren. We here solemnly swear that out of this, the suffering and the sorrow, will come a new freedom for the sons of men everywhere.
Copies of the script you have just heard may be obtained without cost by writing to the Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. And now we present Judge Jonah J. Goldstein, Judge of the Court of General Sessions, New York. Judge Goldstein.
A Memorial Day program is singularly appropriate for a radio period known as the Eternal Light program, because throughout our nation we honor our soldier and sailor dead by dedicating eternal lights in their honor. Memorial Day is not only a holiday, it is a holy day. It has been since May 30th, 1868, when this day was first established for the purpose of paying tribute to the dead who fought for our country. Never was there a Memorial Day which meant as much to us as that of 1945. Many new names have been added to the rolls of honored dead since Pearl Harbor. The war in Europe has taken grim toll of our American youth, as has the Pacific War. The sacrifices of these brave men is a bitter personal loss to their families and to our country. They gave their lives on the consecrated altar of liberty. All of us wish that they had survived to enjoy the fruits of final victory. They died so that we can live. There is nothing that we can do to restore them to the realm of the living. In many instances, their graves are so far removed that we are deprived of the privilege of paying them homage with fresh flowers. Flowers, however, are merely symbols of something far more important. They represent the thought that we give these veterans on this day. Distance is no bar to our thinking of them with deep gratitude. They gave their utmost to preserve and defend our democratic way of life. They knew that what is worth having is worth preserving, and what is worth preserving is worth fighting for. They knew that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. With true patriotic faith, they went to war for themselves, for us, and for future generations. So that they will not have died in vain, our final victory must not be a hollow one. We must be vigilant to preserve our democracy. This is not a one-day-a-year job. It is an all-year-round labor of love and sacrifice. Taps is the bugle call sounded to mark the end of the soldier's day. On Memorial Day, taps will be sounded as funeral honors to mark for our soldiers and sailor dead our remembrance of them. Let that bugle call be for us a clarion call to remind us of our gratitude to them and of a renewal of our faith in our country. Our response to that call must be a supreme effort to do all that is humanly possible to perpetuate the blessings of our democracy. Only in that way can we keep faith with those who kept faith with democracy. With humility and thanksgiving, let us gather added strength by remembering those who gave their lives so that we might build higher on their sacrifice. We who survive must so live that when our call comes, we may truthfully report to them, your sacrifice was not in vain. Because of your sacrifices, the eternal light of democracy burns brighter and stronger.
Thank you, Judge Goldstein. The Eternal Light is written by Morton Wishengrad. The music is composed by Henry Brandt and conducted by Milton Katims. Cantor David Putterman of the Park Avenue Synagogue, New York, sang the liturgical music. Jacob Baum was played by Kermit Murdoch, and Owen Jordan was the narrator. The entire production was under the direction of Ira Avery. This program was a public service presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations, and came to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. If you would like a free copy of today's script, write to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. The Eternal Light comes to you from our Radio City studios in New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation, and it shall be a statute forever in your generations. They are the God Israel,
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light. This public service program is brought to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our drama today, by Morton Wishengrad, is based on Mary Anton's short story, The Lie, and features Charlotte Holland as the teacher and Michael Artist as the boy. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Rabbi Louis I. Newman.
I used to hear that song. Many years ago, when I taught the 6th grade on the Lower East Side, I would hear that song coming softly from the tenements. And every time I heard it, I was reminded of David Rudinsky and The Lie. He was a small boy who told a small lie, and I shall always bless him for it. There was never a 6th grade pupil like David Rudinsky, an immigrant boy for whom geography and grammar and simple fractions were astonishing truths which could be spliced to the core of the universe. But then, when a little Jewish boy from Tsarist Russia comes to school in America, some things are likely to happen that the school board does not provide for. There was something about David Rudinsky that caught at my heart. Something about his small face and his extraordinary eyes and his long silences.
Teacher.
Yes, David?
You know what I tell Mama?
No, what?
I come home and I say to Mama, Mama, teacher talks with her eyes.
Oh. David, a little boy like you shouldn't be so silent.
It's written down, teacher.
What? What's written down, David?
The Holy One said to the tongue, all the limbs of man are erect, but you are horizontal. They are all outside the body, but you are inside. More than that, I have surrounded you with 2 walls, one of bone and the other of flesh.
That's a very strange thing for a boy in the 6th grade to say.
It means that silence is a healing for all sickness. Miss Ralston, Mama says I shouldn't keep you after school every day.
Why not?
She says the school board doesn't pay extra. But that's not right, Miss Ralston, is it? Nobody pays teachers.
No?
Nobody pays mothers.
Oh, I see.
I tell Mama, teachers are born on purpose to teach, just like mothers are born on purpose to cook soup and patch pants.
Perhaps you're right. David, tell me, what do you want to be when you grow up?
An American citizen.
That's fine. But what do you want to do?
I will always vote for honest candidates and belong to a society for arresting illegal voters.
Where in the world did you ever get such an idea?
Why, teacher from Papa, of course. Papa's going to be a real Yankee.
Little David Radinsky thought it a very great matter to be a citizen. You see, he was only an immigrant and excitable. So after class, I would take down my little blue book with the gilt lettering and read Paul Revere's Ride to him and Independence Bell. And in his eyes as I read, there was a clashing of swords and a flapping of banners in the wind. I began to understand David better after I met his father. One day, Mr. Radinsky came to school.
He's a good boy, yes, teacher?
Yes, Mr. Radinsky, you can be proud of David.
He learns good, no?
I haven't a better student.
That makes me glad. If I didn't have to make a living, I'd like to stay here all day and see my David get educated.
But it's only the 6th grade. It isn't very much.
Oh, it's a whole lot. I'm 40 years old, Miss Ralston. But the day I took my children to the school, that was the happiest day of my life.
I believe you, Mr. Radinsky.
You are very good, Miss Ralston. Teacher, of one thing I must make sure.
Yes?
If a boy's father wants to take his son from school to send him to work, the law does not allow, yes?
Not if the boy is younger than 14.
It is the best law. The state is a good father to the children, not like with the Tsar.
Oh, don't worry about that, Mr. Radinsky.
But I must worry. Me in business are not so good. If I fail, poor David will be writing papers.
But David must be allowed to remain in school at least till he's 14.
Yes, David must study. No matter what happens to his father, at least till he is 14.
And that's several years off, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, I have made sure of it.
Have you?
Yes, teacher, I have. And my boy will study and he will make a good American. Yes, teacher.
Mr. Radinsky was such a father. How could he help it?
God bless you, teacher. Right now, I would not change places with Vanderbilt, the millionaire.
I looked into Mr. Radinsky's eyes, and it was like the chanting of a psalm. He turned and went out. And when he was gone, something remained in the classroom that hadn't been there before. I thought of David Radinsky's father while the children filed into the classroom and began the day's lesson in the usual way.
All right, children, all right. My country is of the sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim pride, from every mountain side, let freedom ring.
You may be seated.
Miss Ralston, teacher.
Yes, David?
Teacher, what does it mean, land where my fathers died?
Can someone explain that to David? Yes, Jaime.
Well, land where my fathers died means America. The Pilgrims came here in a Mayflower, and they slugged it out with the Indians.
The Pilgrims, Jaime?
Sure, that's right.
Come here. Look here at my mouth. Now place your tongue like this.
I'm placing, teacher.
Against your front teeth. Like this.
I gotcha.
Now blow out. Good. Now say this.
This.
Now say that.
That.
With.
With. I say it pretty good. Soon I'll be talking better than my brother.
Class went on as usual. Each morning the children rose and sang America, and the lessons began. Then I began to notice that David was troubled. I watched him. His lips formed the words, land where my fathers died, and then they stopped. His eyes fixed themselves on my face, but he did not sing the words. This wasn't like David. I asked him to remain after school.
Goodbye. Come on, Rebecca.
David, is something wrong?
No.
You didn't sing with the others.
No, ma'am.
David, don't you like to sing America?
Oh, yes, ma'am, I do. It's a fine song.
Then why don't you sing it?
Land where my fathers died. How can I sing such a lie?
But that means your ancestors.
They didn't die here.
David Radinsky, you have as much right to those words as anybody in America.
No, ma'am. Land where my fathers died. It wasn't America. If I sing it, it's a lie.
Oh, no, David.
They weren't pilgrims.
Now listen to me. Not all the Pilgrim Fathers came before the Revolution.
No.
Isn't your own father like the Pilgrims? Think of it, David. How he left his home and came to a strange land where he couldn't even speak the language.
Papa never saw an Indian.
No. Yet every ship that ever brought an immigrant was a Mayflower. Listen to me, David. We are going to have a class play. And I want you to play George Washington.
Me, Miss Ralston? George Washington?
Yes, David Radinsky.
He never told a lie.
It will be no lie for you. I want you to stay after class tomorrow and rehearse some lines with the others.
All right, teacher. If it won't be a lie, I'll be very glad to be George Washington.
David, read General Washington's speech to the Hebrew congregation of Newport.
It is now no more that toleration is spoken of, as if it were by the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens.
Not bad, kid.
Very good, David. When we put the play on, you're going to wear a uniform and a powdered wig.
Me?
Yes. And you'll look just like George Washington. It'll look fine on the program, too. George Washington, played by David Radinsky, age... Oh, how old are you, David? David, I asked how old you are.
Me, teacher?
Yes, of course. How old are you?
12. Yes, I'm 12.
Don't you know? David.
Teacher, he's getting all whiny.
David, is something wrong? Are you ill?
No, nothing's the matter. I'm all right.
If he's going to play George Washington, he's got to tell the truth. He's sick.
Be quiet, honey. David, your hands are so cold.
I guess you don't feel good.
Now, come on, get your coat on. I'm taking you home. Here, you're crying.
No, don't take me home. Don't anybody take me home. I told myself I'm not sick. I ain't sick. I told myself, I tell you.
All she does is ask him how old he is. And look at him. Who wants to play George Washington anyhow?
Alabama is bounded on the north by Tennessee, on the east by the state of Georgia, on the south by Florida and the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes?
I'm Benny, David's brother.
Take up your compositions, children. Benny, why didn't David come to school?
He's very sick.
Oh. Did you have a doctor?
Not yet. My mother says you can die 10 times before the dispensary doctor comes.
Well, Benny, you tell David to get well quickly. Tell him we won't put the play on until he comes back. Only David Rudinsky will play George Washington.
How is he, Doctor?
Sit down, Mrs. Rudinsky.
Doctor, tell us. Is it so bad?
Well, his fever isn't anything to be alarmed at. His pulse is rather fast, but it isn't his physical condition.
No? Something else, Doctor?
No, I can't make it out.
It is my fault. He works too hard. He reads too many books.
Mama, books don't hurt nobody. Did he say something, Doctor?
Well, that's what I can't make out. When I was ready to go, he caught my sleeve and said, "Doctor, did you ever tell a lie?"
Here's some water, David.
Thanks, Jaime. I'm glad you came to see me.
Oh, it was nothing. What's that?
A letter from Miss Ralston. You give it to her, Jaime.
Sure. Dear teacher, Miss Ralston, I can't be George Washington anymore because I have lied to you. I must not tell you about what because you would blame somebody who didn't do wrong. Your friend, David Rudinsky.
You take it to her, Jaime.
All right. David, what's the lie? All right, you don't have to say nothing. David, teacher gave me something to read to you.
I don't want to hear it.
It ain't about George Washington.
No?
Honest.
All right, Jaime. You can read it if you want to.
A song of David. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, coming down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that cometh down upon the collar of his garments, like the dew of Hermon that cometh down upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forever.
Jaime, teacher sent you the wrong thing to read.
Don't cry, David. I didn't say nothing.
She sent you the wrong thing. She should have sent you the 10 Commandments. She should have sent you, thou shalt not bear false witness. You know what that means, Jaime? It means you mustn't tell a lie. It means a lie I can't play George Washington. It means a lie I can't be a good American.
Mama, the teacher, Miss Ralston. She came to our house.
Benny, David is sleeping. Do you want to wake him up?
He won't wake up.
I hope I'm not disturbing you, Mrs. Rudinsky.
Oh, you are an angel, Miss Ralston. I'm sorry the house is upset. Such company should not sit in the kitchen.
We got a parlor, but David's sleeping there.
That's enough, Benny. You go mind the store and tell Papa to come here.
All right, Mama.
Mrs. Rudinsky, is David any better?
No. He turns his face to the wall and he cries. Such a big boy should not be crying all the time.
He sent me a very strange note, Mrs. Rudinsky, and he returned his part for the play. I hardly know what to say.
You came. What is more to say? You like my boy, teacher, huh? Mm-hmm. Ah, yes, I see it. The first time in your class, David come home. Mama, he said to me, that is what he said. Mama, teacher talks with her eyes.
Mrs. Rudinsky, how can we help him?
God will show us.
If only you knew what was wrong.
You are here now. Maybe God sent you to us. I will see if David is up. Maybe he will talk to you.
teacher?
He won't talk to me, Mr. Radinsky. He says a liar mustn't talk.
Teacher, he's an innocent soul. There is no spot on my David.
Maybe I am to blame. What did I do? All I wanted was strength from God to earn a living, to have my children go to school, to be educated Americans.
Try not to worry. This will pass, whatever it is.
Oh, no, teacher, this will not pass. Body sickness passes, but soul sickness does not pass. Look, teacher, these books. This is what my David reads. On his vacations, he goes to the library. All day he sits on the fire escape and he reads. At night we put out the light and he binds matches to read by. Hundreds of burnt matches we find, but we say nothing. We want he should be educated. How can a man be a good Jew and a good American and not have learning?
My husband is upset. You will excuse him, teacher.
Suddenly, there was nothing more important in the whole world than to mend the sickness that was in David Radinsky's soul. The tenement where he lived was dingy and airless, but there was a cleanliness of soul in that house, a cleanliness that shone like Mrs. Radinsky's kitchen. And then, perhaps Mrs. Radinsky was right, and God did help, for almost accidentally he showed us the terrible enormity of David Radinsky's lie.
Teacher, you will not give David a bad mark for this?
Oh, no, Mr. Radinsky. He's my best pupil. He's done splendidly for an immigrant boy of 12.
Yes, teacher. No, teacher. He is really 14, but his father made him out younger on purpose.
What did you say?
His father made him out younger on purpose.
Why did you do that, Mr. Radinsky?
Well, after 14 years, a boy can take out working papers. No, you told me.
Yes, but why did you... I don't understand.
Teacher, in America, the state is a good father and a good policeman.
But, Mr. Radinsky, why did you do it?
Maybe times will be bad. David will have to work. No. If I fail in business, David will not have to work. The policeman will keep me from robbing my David of an education.
Go on.
On the certificate, I put down he's 2 years younger, so he will stay in school longer, even if I fail.
Then David isn't 12.
I just told you he's 14.
Mr. Radinsky, don't you see? That's it. Don't you see?
Please, teacher, see what?
But it's so clear.
Clear, teacher?
His note. Listen. I can't be George Washington anymore because I have lied to you. I must not tell you about what, because you would blame somebody who didn't do wrong.
You mean, teacher, it is not David? Is that it?
I asked him his age. He said 12. That's his lie.
No,
teacher. That's why he's sick.
May God forgive me. The lie belongs to me.
Yes.
I have done this to him.
Try to be calm.
But, teacher, God in heaven, teacher, I didn't want to do wrong. All I wanted was to tie my hands, to tie my own hands so I couldn't pull my David down with me, so he would stay longer in school.
I'm glad I know you, Mr. Radinsky.
We are the liars, teacher. David is no liar. He would have told, but it says, honor thy father and thy mother. And how could a little boy say his father is a liar?
How will he ever respect me? How will he ever respect me?
He doesn't blame you, Mr. Radinsky. He only blames himself. And he wouldn't tell me because he respects you so much.
Teacher, you really think so?
Yes, I do. And if you don't mind, I want to see David now. I closed the kitchen door, and I stood over David's bed. 2 fearful eyes burned at me through the dusk of the room, and the lamplight made a halo of his hair. And from the next flat, a plaintive voice sang sweetly in words I didn't understand. But the song was as healing as silence.
What are you bringing me, teacher?
Cool hands for your head, David. And words to tell you that I know what your lie is.
Then my father, I didn't want him to.
He's worthy of you, David. And you are worthy of him.
But George Washington didn't tell a lie. I said I was 12. It was a lie.
Still, David, you will put on the uniform, and we will give you a powdered wig for your head and a sword for your side, and you will play George Washington.
And I will say the words, teacher.
Yes, David. Say them now.
Oh, yes, teacher, yes. Everyone shall sit in safety under his vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. May the fathers of all mercy scatter light and not darkness in our paths.
Yes, David. He said that to the Newport congregation for the Jewish soldiers dead in the American Revolution.
Oh, teacher, it's true. Land where my fathers died.
Copies of the script you have just heard, as well as the talk which follows immediately, may be obtained without cost by writing to the Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. And now we present Dr. Louis I. Newman, Rabbi of the Temple Rodef Shalom, New York. Rabbi Newman.
When President Truman, in his first address to his country, quoted from the book of 1 Kings, "Give thy servant therefore an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this thy great people?" He was following an honored tradition in American life. From the earliest beginnings of our nation, our leaders have drawn upon the Bible for nourishment, the Holy Scriptures, which are inspired because they are inspiring. This concordance between Hebraism and Americanism is an established and recognized element in our national culture. The influence of the so-called Old Testament upon the Puritan fathers of America is too well known to need emphasis here. It is not known, however, that the Bible was a liberating, not a repressive, factor throughout the centuries. While John Cotton, compiling Moses' Judicials in 1636, utilized biblical texts to shackle free thought and belief, Roger Williams, his illustrious adversary, turned to the Bible for reinforcement of his liberal ideas and institutions. In his treatment of the Pequot Indians, he advocated a humane solution, since, he said, the Most High delights in mercy. In championing the principles of liberation in England, he speaks of himself as sounding a blast on his despised ram's horn. And in his Portsmouth Code of 1647, he paraphrases the prophet Micah, saying with reference to the laws, "Otherwise than thus what is herein forbidden, all men may walk as their consciences persuade them, every one in the name of his God." The revolt against Sir Edmund Andros in 1639 was fortified with biblical quotations, sanctioning a protest against tyrannical power. During the Revolution, preachers and laymen alike drew abundantly upon citations from the Bible, notably the magnificent warning of the prophet Samuel against submission to a despoiling king. Abraham Lincoln again and again adorned his utterances with biblical references, one of which, dealing with David's pardon of his enemies, the emancipator president applied to the rebellious South after its defeat. Woodrow Wilson, speaking of the Bible and progress, declared America was born to exemplify that devotion to the elements of righteousness which are derived from the revelations of Holy Scriptures. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt, of blessed memory, reminded the world at a time when the dignity of man was being defiled that Genesis speaks of God as creating man in his own image. May the world, dawning amid the ruins, hold fast to the Bible of Israel and make it the chief cornerstone for the edifice of peace and brotherhood.
Thank you, Rabbi Newman. Today's script was adapted for radio by Morton Wishengrad from Mary Anton's short story, The Lie, which first appeared in the Atlantic Monthly. The music was written by Henry Brandt and conducted by Milton Catons. Cantor David Putterman of the Park Avenue Synagogue, New York, was the soloist. Charlotte Holland appeared as the teacher, and Michael Artist was featured as David. The entire production was under the direction of Ira Avery. This program is a public service of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations, and presented under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. If you would like a free copy of today's script, write to the Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations presents The Eternal Light. This public service program is presented under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Today's story, written by Morton Wishengrad, is entitled The Bar Mitzvah of Private Cohen, and features Stacey Harris as the sergeant and Jack Lloyd as Private Cohen. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Rabbi Max D. Davidson.
Maybe I'm not the one who ought to tell this story. I'm just a sergeant. But anyhow, you're listening to me, and if you want to make something out of it, you know what you can do. Well, coming to the point, this is the story of Private First Class Cohen, a little kid that he found, and the chaplain. Mostly it's the story of how Private Cohen got to be bar mitzvah. If you don't know what that means, you're ignorant, same as me. So stick around. How come a loud lout like me gets sort of wet in the eyes when he hears singing like that? Well, you can put it down to the chaplain. I don't say that nobody rolls the dice since the rabbi is assigned to this sector, but he's what you might call a decent influence. And on him, it looks good. Well, coming to the point, this happened in Germany, just after the German High Command signed a little paper for Eisenhower. Private Cohen came to me and spilled the whole story. Right away, I knew we had to see the chaplain.
Listen, Sarge, I tell you the chaplain can't do anything about it.
Cohen, you and me is going in and talk to him.
But, Sarge, I swear it's 7 years too late. I'm 20.
Private Cohen, you want to get to be 21?
Sure.
Then come on.
All right, don't push me. I'm a little nervous.
Nervous Cohen, pride of the regiment.
You got a cigarette?
Okay. Today I can afford it. Take one.
Thanks. Got a match?
Don't you ever carry anything? Here.
Thanks, Sarge. In case you don't know, the cigarette is stale as usual.
Oh, so now you're a critic. And stop changing the subject. Chaplain ain't got all day. Cohen, inside.
What's the trouble, Sergeant?
Chaplain, what happens to a Jewish boy when he gets to be 13 years old?
Why, he's called before the congregation, reads the Haftorah, and is formally admitted to the congregation of Israel.
That's bar mitzvah, right?
Yes, the ceremony of confirmation.
You been bar mitzvah, Chaplain?
Oh, certainly.
Well, Chaplain, look at Cohen here. Now, he ain't like me. He can talk geometry.
Sarge, believe me, you don't talk geometry.
Shut up. Look at him, Chaplain, smoking my cigarettes. I'd give him a rap in the teeth. Well, Chaplain, Private Cohen here ain't never been bar mitzvahed.
Is that right, soldier?
Yes, Chaplain. It was the Depression. My folks didn't have beans. I had to quit school and go to work. So I wasn't confirmed. Chaplain, that's the truth.
That's all right. Jewish boy enters the congregation of Israel when he's 13, whether he's called to the Torah or not. No one excludes you from the services, do they?
I know that, Chaplain. But, well, it's on my conscience. I got through the shooting all right, but, well, maybe we'll be sent to the Japanese front, and, well, a fella can't tell. Do you think, Chaplain, you might stretch your point?
Well, it's really not necessary, Private Cohen.
It's necessary to me, sir.
But the entire point of confirmation is the calling of the young boy to the altar in the presence of the congregation.
Then call me to the altar, Chaplain.
Well, you'll have to learn the portion for the week.
Just you teach me, sir.
Well, there's a good deal more, Private. Reading the daily prayers, studying Hebrew, putting on the phylacteries, learning the benedictions. Perhaps several hours a day for weeks.
Whenever you want to begin, sir.
Well, I am fairly certain there's no rabbinical precedent for my action.
But you'll help me, Chaplain?
I'll be very glad to see that you're confirmed, Private Cohen.
I'm going to send a letter to my mother, Chaplain. She'll be pretty happy.
Well, what a cute little bar mitzvah boy.
Hey, Sarge, today I am a man.
None of that, you mug.
Come here, Cohen. I want to pinch your cheek.
I said none of that.
Sure, fellas, why don't you leave me alone? I got to study.
Okay. What are you studying?
Oh, just some Hebrew.
And nobody making it crack, see?
Who said anything, Sergeant?
You did, Cooper, and I don't like it. Now, go ahead and read, Cohen.
Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai roi lo echsor. Binos deshe yabitzeni. Al me menuchos yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo.
You hear that, wise guys? Tell them what it means, Cohen.
The Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. You fellows know the rest.
Yeah.
Anybody want to laugh?
That's okay, Sarge.
Yeah, sure. All right, you guys. Scram, he's got to work, see? Well, don't you want Private Cohen to be bar mitzvahed? Now, go ahead, beat it. After that, nobody kids Private Cohen. The outfit moves on, but the lessons, they don't stop. And nobody says a thing. Then one day, me and Cohen are in a German town, and Cohen starts giving me the usual treatment.
You got a cigarette?
Oh, quit mooching. Here.
Thanks, Sarge. Got a match?
Here, burn yourself.
Thanks. Sergeant, what do you do to make them so stale?
Would you shut up? I'll recite your lesson, Mug, and do it good.
All right. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'magle tzedek, lemon shemo.
Gam ki elech b'gei salmove.
Hey.
It's a little kid.
Hey, you. Hey, where you going? You. Come and see here.
I don't mean anything harm.
Holy cats, he speaks English. Ooh, and what English?
You got chocolate?
Hey, Cohen, is this a relative? Kid, where'd you learn to speak American?
In Chicago. We stay with a Swedish family.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Where'd you learn to speak Hebrew?
In Poland.
Well, then what in Adolf's name are you doing in Germany?
I live here.
Cohen, I think I need an aspirin. Will you take over before I go nuts?
What's your name, Sonny?
Solomon Gruenwald.
Where's your father?
Dead.
Oh. Your mother?
Dead.
Any brothers or sisters?
Nazis killed them all.
How'd you come to be here?
Was born here.
And Chicago?
The World's Fair. I was very young. Papa was in civil service, what you call a technical man. He do things at German exhibition. The next year we go to Poland.
There's some chocolate, kid.
Thank you.
Sonny, why didn't the Germans get you?
People here hide me. Every week a different family.
Come on, Sonny, come with me.
Hey, where are you taking him?
To the chaplain, naturally. This boy needs a home. If anybody can do it, I guess the chaplain can.
Now, the chaplain ain't what you might call an unoccupied man. All he does is conduct services every day, visit the wounded, bury the dead, give advice to no-good dice players like Corporal Cooper. Write letters to your old lady back home, make a man out of Private Cohen, so now he also has the kid on his hands. That's war. But the chaplain, he don't see them, right? Even though the kid can drive 6 angels nuts with questions.
This chaplain, what is, please?
My insignia, Sonny. Private Cohen, how many times you supposed to wind the phylactery strap around your middle finger?
I'll get it straight. Just give me time.
What on insignia, chaplain?
The 10 Commandments. Private, 7 twists now around the left arm. Space them evenly.
I'm getting it.
He is very old to be bar mitzvah.
Look, kid, don't you have to go someplace?
No.
Sure, I figured that. Maybe you'd like to fill your mouth with chocolate, huh?
Thank you very much. It's good. Where will be bar mitzvah?
Swallow the chocolate first, Sonny. We hold services in a big tent.
Better in our synagogue.
What's that? I was told there was no synagogue here.
Nazis use it for stable, for horses. It's not good.
Good Lord, can you show us where it is?
When I finish chocolate.
Hurry up, kid.
I guess he yumping the be bar mitzvah.
Soldier, get a cleanup detail. Tell the sergeant to ask for volunteers. Private Cohen, you're going to be confirmed in a real synagogue.
Okay, guys, the chaplain wants volunteers. You volunteer, Cooper.
Huh? Oh, sure, Sarge. I was going to do it anyhow.
Okay, you 6 will do.
Got room for one more, Sarge.
Right you are, Mac. Now, buckets, fellas. Buckets and plenty of soap.
Got some room for me, Sergeant?
Yeah, it's mighty decent of you, Mooney.
Oh, save it. Gibson and Christensen are going to meet us outside the synagogue.
Got a cigarette, Sergeant?
Shut up, you moocher. Come on, guys.
Well, Sarge, do we go in or don't we? What's the matter, Sergeant?
I don't know. Hey, you guys, fall back.
What's eating you?
Fall back.
Oh, these buckets of water are making me round-shouldered.
Come on, step back. I don't like the looks of that synagogue door.
You think it's booby-trapped?
I wouldn't put nothing past the Krauts. Hey, where's our little bar mitzvah boy?
You mean me, Sergeant?
Yeah, give me that wire. No use taking any chances.
You've been reading too many books, Sarge.
Don't get wise.
If that there door is booby-trapped, why, I swear to Lord, I'll mend my ways.
I'll hold you to that. Give me room, fellas. Okay, guys, watch it.
Well, come on in, fellas. It looks like I still have to be a sinner.
Well, I looked all over for booby traps, except in the right place. Maybe if the chaplain and his aide had been there, it wouldn't have happened. That would have been the first place they would have looked. But they got called away until the day of Private Cohen's bar mitzvah. Yeah. That was quite a day. The whole outfit came to see. Christensen and Mooney couldn't understand why they had to wear their hats in the synagogue, and I guess I never got around to explaining. Well, coming to the point, Private Cohen stood up in front of the congregation, and he read the prayer just like it should have been read. And the chaplain, well, he was happy.
Men, you've just seen a young man confirmed in the faith of the Bible. Here in this synagogue, which a pagan nation converted into a stable, and which you have reconverted to the use of God, an act of spiritual dedication was performed. I think I understand now the dictum, Kol hamakayem nefesh achas miYisrael, ke'ilu kiyem olam moleh. He who saves a single life is as one who saves the whole world. I think I understand the Quaker who said that in every man and woman there is something that is not of earth, nor of dust, nor of flesh, nor of time, but of God. The Germans have not believed this. That is their crime against the dignity and godliness of every human being. Now I wish to deposit a token here of man's godliness. Private Cohen.
Yes, Chaplain?
You read the biblical portion from this small Torah in my prayer case. But I have here a larger Torah, which has been flown from London and paid for by the men sitting in the benches before you. It's their bar mitzvah gift to you and to this synagogue.
Chaplain, I guess I just can't talk.
You don't have to talk. Private Cohen, for more than 6 years, no Jew has opened the Ark of the Covenant that stands here in this synagogue. On this day of your confirmation, I should like you to open the Ark and place within this holy scroll.
Thank you, Chaplain. My mother will be... You know what I mean?
That was the booby trap we didn't look for. Private Cohen, he just lay there with the Holy Scroll still in his arms and the warm blood running over it. We just sat. We just didn't know. It was the chaplain who got to him first and carried him to the hospital.
Soldier, can you hear me? Here's the sergeant.
Yes, Sarge.
Save your strength, kid.
No, it's okay. It doesn't hurt much. Chaplain?
Yes, soldier.
Back in my billet. You'll find it with my stuff. Let it to my mother. Send it to her, please.
No, kid, no. You'll send it yourself.
Yeah, I know.
All right, soldier.
The address is 249 Ashford Place, Lancaster, PA. Tell her I was confirmed.
I'll tell her.
Her name is Sarah Cohen.
Sure. I won't forget.
Thanks. Sarge.
Yeah, kid?
Got a cigarette, Sarge?
Mooching again, huh? Here.
Got a match?
Private Cohen, all you got's the habit.
Yeah, like living. Gonna break the habit, I guess. Chaplain, is Mola Dubid Adonor Hoi Lo Elso? Say it for me, please. Maybe your aide can sing the words.
Yes, of course. He'll sing the words. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
I guess his mother will want everything he had, Chaplain. It's all in the bundle.
I'm glad you came with me, Sergeant.
Chaplain, I'm dumb and all mixed up. What's it all about? He got through the fighting all right, and then to get it like that. Chaplain, it ain't right.
No. Yet all we can say is, blessed be the righteous judge.
You think the war's stopped, and it hasn't stopped. Maybe it don't ever stop. Here, the bundle's tied good and tight.
I'll take it with me, Sergeant. Mrs. Sarah Cohen, 249 Ashford Place.
Yeah. Dear Madam, under separate cover, please find the prayer shawl and Bible of your bar mitzvah boy. Oh, it's a lousy world, ain't it, Chaplain? It'll never be any better.
I don't believe that, Sergeant. It takes time, but it will come. You just got to believe that the world will get better. Sickness passes.
I don't see it, Chaplain. I don't see nothing.
You must see it, Sergeant. You must believe in it.
Nope. Not me.
You will, Sergeant. I'm sure you will.
You can fight a war and see 100 dead guys, but you never get used to it. It ain't like a bank teller counting $20 bills that ain't got value for him anymore. You live with guys, you bury them, but you never get used to it. You wonder what it's all for. Sure, the chaplain said it could be a good world, but you need people to make it good. That's what he meant. Maybe I didn't understand him, but I understood the kid. Maybe that's why I told you the whole story of Private Cohen's bar mitzvah. Because of what happened to me with that funny little kid we picked up in the German town. The kid who was always asking questions.
What is in newspaper, Sergeant?
Nothing, kid, nothing at all.
What it says on the map?
It's just a newspaper map, kid. Don't ask me no questions.
A map of the world?
Yeah, the whole rotten world. Sonny, why don't you go away? I don't want to talk.
If you don't talk with me, I have nothing to do.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Look, kid, this'll keep you busy. Here's the map, see? Now, we'll make a puzzle of it. And now you take the torn pieces and put it back together. It's a puzzle, see?
It's good, a puzzle.
Yeah, kid, especially this one. My generation tears up the map, and your generation puts it together. Now, go away and take 2 hours. Just don't bother me.
Okay. I take it in next room. Sure, I take it and bring it back when I finish puzzle. Maybe it won't take very long. Sergeant.
Yeah?
Puzzle all finished. I bring back finished puzzle.
Look, kid, you just left. Go back and do it right.
But puzzle all finished.
You finished?
Sure. It was very simple.
Well, kid, I don't get it. How'd you do it so soon?
It was easy. On other side of page was picture of man. Once I put together picture of man, map of world come out all right. See? It's all right.
Yeah, kid. Yeah, it's all right. It's okay. Yeah, you got the man straight, and the whole world came out all right. Sure, kid, sure. Okay.
Copies of the script you have just heard may be obtained without cost by writing to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. And now we take pleasure in presenting Rabbi Max D. Davidson, Rabbi of the Congregation Beth Mordecai of Perth Amboy, New Jersey, and Chairman of the Rabbinical Assembly Convention, which opens in New York tonight. Rabbi Davidson.
When the whole story of this war is told, some poet of a future generation will tell of the fighting without guns, heroism without medals or ribbons, sacrifice without music. A dramatic chapter will record the service of the Jewish chaplains in the American Army and Navy, almost 300 in number. These Jewish chaplains are establishing new relationships between minister and congregant. Men and women in service are coming to their chaplains, their rabbis. Some of them may have drifted far from the faith of their fathers. Many of them are coming under the compulsion of a great crisis far away from home, or because they see life and death dealt with so casually all around them, or simply because they don't understand themselves as Jews. So they come to their chaplains. Unlike civilian congregations, they are not seeking sweet eloquence in the pulpit. They are not trying to erect imposing buildings. They are seeking something more eloquent than oratory, more permanent than brick and stone. They are seeking, and they are finding, knowledge of the great tradition of Judaism. They want, and they get, counsel and comfort and courage. Like the engineers who build a bridge, they are conquering the enemy. The trappings are very simple. The sanctuary may be an Aron Kodesh built into a trunk and set up on the banks of the Rhine, or it may be the stump of a tree on a Pacific island. Their Ner Tamid, their eternal light, may be a shining star or a jungle moon. Not all their religious experiences are as dramatic as the bar mitzvah of Private Cohen, but many a boy has had his faith confirmed through the influence of the rabbis in uniform, the 300 rabbis, Jewish chaplains, who are now serving on land, on sea, and in the air all over the world. Their service is a symbol and a token, a promise of Jewish religious life in America after the war.
Thank you, Rabbi Davidson. The Bar Mitzvah of Private Cohen was written by Morton Wishengrad. The music was composed by Henry Brandt and conducted by Milton Catums. Cantor David Putterman of the Park Avenue Synagogue, New York, was the soloist. The sergeant was played by Stacey Harris, Jack Lloyd appeared as Private Cohen, and Roger DeKoven was the chaplain. The entire production was under the direction of Frank Papp. This program has been a public service presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations, and was brought to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. If you would like a free copy of the script, write to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York.
Shema Yisrael.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light. This public service program is presented under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Today's story, The Jukebox Boys in the Synagogue, was suggested by an actual episode and was adapted for radio by Joseph Liss. Featured as the reporter is Gene Ellen.
City desk.
Hello?
Yes, hello. City desk.
This is the newspaper office?
Yes, of course.
You gotta send somebody up here right away.
Where? What for?
Terrible. Terrible.
What's it about?
I can hardly talk about it.
Listen, what happened, lady?
What happened, she asked.
Did a tree fall, a house burn? Did a horse get run down by a trolley car?
Please send somebody.
Where?
Miller Park section.
What happened?
An incident.
What kind of an incident?
I'm sorry. I can't talk about it.
Janie,
Yes?
this may not amount to anything, but you covered some stories up around Miller Park.
That's right.
What kind of neighborhood is it?
Oh, it's just a neighborhood. A bit of a stepchild of the city fathers, but otherwise just a neighborhood full of people.
Will you tell me what you mean?
Well, there are no Parisian boulevards. It used to be mostly a Jewish neighborhood, but then quite a few Spaniards and Puerto Ricans moved up there. Now, the Jewish section is just a few blocks around the park. It's a small park.
All right, Miss Guidebook, go up there, see what you find. A lady just phoned to say an incident has come to pass. And don't ask me what's an incident.
That's how I became involved in the story of the Jukebox Boys and the Synagogue. I went up to Miller Park on the L. You know the L. From the window, you can see people sleeping on pulled-out Davenports in the parlor. You can see a boy doing his homework on a dining room table. And a fellow and a girl practicing steps to the top tunes of the week. You can see a lot of living from an L window. And if a man from these parts seems to talk loud, don't think he's shouting at you. It's only a rapid transit bellow. When I got off the L at the Allen Street station at 10 o'clock that evening, I found the streets tense. There wasn't anything actually happening, but you could see that people were on edge. Around the shopping center at the corner of Gurney Boulevard and Jackson Street, people were standing in twos and threes, talking in low voices. I saw 4 patrolmen standing in a watchful knot. There was no way of telling what it was all about, so I asked questions. What's going on around here?
Huh?
What's happening around here?
Well, I'm not sure.
With his head, he indicated the policeman.
They're ready for trouble. I understand some man was shot.
Oh.
Maybe killed over near the synagogue.
How awful. How did it happen?
I don't know.
Well, where's he now?
I couldn't tell you.
I walked on. Pack of cigarettes, please.
You know there's a war on.
Sure. What's the trouble around here anyway?
Didn't you hear?
What?
The Torahs were stolen from the synagogue. The Holy Scrolls.
Did you hear about anyone being shot?
That I didn't hear. All I hear was about the Torahs.
Has something happened around here?
I hear there was a fire. Some kids started it. Isn't it terrible what they'll do?
I went to a group of 3 people talking in front of a drugstore. But as soon as I asked them something, a policeman came.
Hold on, please.
But why? Can't I even...
No congregating, lady. That's our orders.
Congregating? Why, there are only 4 people here.
Sorry, lady. I have to ask you to keep moving.
What's it all about, officer?
Some trouble at the synagogue.
I walked 2 short blocks up Beckley Street to where the synagogue was. I heard all kinds of stories, but the synagogue was still standing, dark and quiet, with its gates locked. Police strolled up and down, keeping people on the move. They didn't seem to know just what was wrong, so finally I went to the police station on Allen Street, not far away.
All right, sir. Why don't you just tell your whole story right from the beginning, the way it happened?
I will. You see, today is Simchas Torah, the day we finish studying our Torah for the year. At the synagogue school...
A quiet man was just entering a complaint. He was telling his story to the sergeant.
Our boys were rehearsing with our cantor. Rejoice and be happy in the rejoicing of the Torah. It's a traditional song we sing at the festival celebrating the conclusion of the reading of the Pentateuch. The rehearsal was going fairly well.
Stop. Leon, close your mouth. I'm sorry. When I want you to sing, you eat candy. When I holler for you to stop, you're Caruso. Now just relax, and I'll tell you what each of you is supposed to do. That part was much better that time. Now listen. When the procession passes 7 times around the pulpit, all of you sing. You listening, Harold?
You told me I wasn't supposed to sing.
Your voice is changing, but not your ears. Listen. The scrolls of the law will be taken out of the ark by the men.
When do I walk around with an apple on a stick?
Don't worry. You won't forget it, Leon. When it comes to food, I can rely on you. The apple on the stick, by the way, is the sign of fruitfulness, because this holy day is so near the harvest time. And the candles, Joseph. What do the candles mean?
The candles are a symbol of the light of the soul, which is the Torah.
Good, Joseph, good. Soon you'll be ready for your bar mitzvah. Now, it's such a warm night. Suppose we go out on the steps for a breath of air. Afterwards, we go on.
That's how it was that our kids were on the steps all together eating candy. Suddenly, 5 Gentile boys came along and asked one of our boys for a nickel. I don't know why. But before he could get an answer, 2 of our boys ran down the steps and chased the other boys. As they ran away, one threatened to come back with his gang.
What gang?
I don't know.
Go on.
Well, they came back an hour later, about 9 o'clock. Some of them were carrying sticks and stones. But they never threw the stones because I saw them and began blowing my air raid warden whistle. Maybe they thought it was a police whistle. They ran away, and I chased them.
While I was running, one of them hit me on the head with a stick. I couldn't catch them.
And that's all there is to the story as you saw it?
That's all.
All right. Thank you.
That was all. But that story had grown by now into a dozen different rumors. Rumors that ran in whispers all around the Miller Park neighborhood and had almost every man, woman, and child on edge. Could the facts catch up with the rumors before there was trouble? Could common sense relieve the tension? How could it be done? That night, I found boys, Jewish and Gentile, wandering around the neighborhood in large numbers. Some were carrying brass knuckles made from the handles of garbage can covers. Others had ropes and bits of rubber hose. I stopped one of the kids.
Hey, I didn't do nothing, lady.
What did you have in mind?
What?
What are you planning with that?
Oh, this? Ain't it a beaut? Blackjack. Oh, baby. Oh! Hurt myself.
What's it for?
Protection.
Against whom?
Puerto Rican kids. The Jukebox boys. They're coming around here beating up old men.
Nothing happened that night. The next night, Tuesday, I went back to the synagogue. A crowd had gathered, mostly boys.
Break it up. Now move on.
We're just holding a meeting, officer.
Well, you can't do it here. I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to organize a truce.
Well, you can't take the law into your own hands. You'll have to move on. Now, move on. Now.
How do you like that?
What's the trouble?
I was organizing a truce.
I'm a newspaper reporter. Won't you tell me about it?
I guess we'll just have to hold the meeting somewhere else. Do you want to come along?
Sure.
Maybe you can help me calm them down.
Tell me, who are you and what's your idea?
Come on and I'll tell you. I'm nonpartisan. Joe is my name.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I'm going into the Army pretty soon. I'm almost 18 and I'll get my greetings any day. I'll only be around here a little while longer. I'm a sophomore in college. Well, what's the use of me going off to fight overseas if there's going to be this sort of thing back home? So, I'm trying to patch this up before I go. Anybody in his right mind would do the same.
Maybe you're right.
I just talked to the leader of the Jukebox boys an hour ago. Now we've got to get busy here. Come on, let's get moving. Before we start this meeting, how about parking your artillery in this garbage can here? Are you living in a democratic country, or is this a fascist country where you have to carry weapons? Can't you trust your neighbors? Aren't there good Jews and bad Jews? Good Puerto Ricans and bad Puerto Ricans?
Well, we got some Puerto Ricans in our club. Some of them is okay.
Well, all I know is they're organizing against us. The Puerto Rican Knights, the Mysterious Five, and the Terrors, all down by the Jukebox. And we'd better be ready.
All right. Now, here's the point. I've been talking with their leaders. They'll agree on a truce if you will. We'll set up a meeting tomorrow night at the synagogue and work out the terms. Now, here's what I want to know. If I can round up the Jukebox boys and bring them to that meeting, will you meet with them?
Sure.
Well, if I don't hear any dissenting vote, I guess it's unanimous.
You mean that you and the dame, without any ammunition on you, are going to walk down to the Jukebox?
Why not?
You just don't know the facts of life.
First, we made arrangements for the meeting to be held in the synagogue. Then Joe had another idea.
Let's get a war veteran to come to this meeting. And a minister.
Good. That's a swell idea.
And maybe a singer. You know, dress it up a little.
Fine. We made the arrangements by phone and then went on our way. Down Beckley Street to Gurney Boulevard and along the boulevard to Pitt Street, where the Jukebox was. A soda fountain that was a meeting place for the boys. The street was lined with the usual 5- and 6-story apartment houses. And there were lots of stores, many of them vacant, and a streetcar line. Men and women were walking along about their affairs. None of the adults seemed to realize that this was a dangerous world they were in. Finally, we reached the soda fountain.
This is it. We meet them here.
It was an ordinary place with a few table booths in the rear and telephone booths. There were 6 Puerto Rican boys sitting at the soda fountain. Joe went up to them.
Hello, fellas.
What's on your mind?
The boys around Miller Park will meet with you under a flag of truce.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're going to have a meeting tonight. You and they. I talked to Gaucho about it. Didn't he tell you?
Maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
Don't you know about the meeting because of the trouble on Monday?
What trouble? Come on, fellas.
They slid off their chairs and walked out into the street. Joe and I followed, but they quickly disappeared. Then another boy came up to us.
Hey, Gaucho wants to see you. Follow me.
Why can't Gaucho come here to see us?
Huh? Well, I'll ask him.
The boy left, and we waited. One by one, they began to appear. The kids, none older than 17. They crowded around us.
Quizás una emboscada de los judíos.
Let's get out of here, Gaucho. Hello, Gaucho. Que Contera es eso de un meeting.
Who wants a meeting? It's a frame-up, Gaucho. Here come the cops. Beat it.
No, wait.
Hey, what's all the crowd for?
We're waiting for a delegation to take to a peace meeting.
A crowd like this? That's asking for trouble, lady.
This is for a meeting in the synagogue. The Puerto Rican and the Jewish boys.
How's that?
Jack Davis, commander of Post 62, is going to represent the war veterans. And Reverend Donald Franklin will be there, too, the Protestant minister.
Well, all right, but keep moving.
Hey, look, Gaucho. She drove the bulls away.
What do you know? She's all right.
Well, what do you say, Gaucho? Coming?
Okay, fellas, let's go. Where to, Gaucho?
To the meeting. What do you think? I'm not deucing out.
We started off. At the head went Joe, broad-shouldered and husky, and Gaucho, no more than 5'4", with a long, thin face and dark, sleek hair. He wore a broad-brimmed hat and pegged trousers. As we neared the Miller Park section, another policeman suddenly came running up.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
All right, keep going, fellas.
What's going on here?
Keep moving, Gaucho. I'll explain it to him.
It's all right, officer.
What's it all about?
Joe talked to the policeman. I watched Gaucho. He seemed to have shrunk in his tracks, but he kept moving. The others followed. Finally, we reached the synagogue and stopped.
Hey, Gaucho. Maybe it's a trap, huh?
We're not backing out. Juan, go in and see if the coast is clear. Report back.
The scout went in, and in a moment came back. He nodded reassuringly.
It's okay. No cops in there.
Fine, let's go.
We started to file into the vestibule, looking back at the policemen and the people who had gathered on the sidewalk. Then we entered the auditorium. The delegation started down the long, narrow aisle. On one side, the Jewish boys were sitting on the benches. Their heads turned and they stared in amazement at the visitors. They could hardly believe their eyes.
Hey, Gaucho.
Yeah?
In a synagogue here, people are supposed to wear these little black skull caps. I got a dozen here, that is, if you want to.
Sure. Give me here. What do you call these?
Yarmulkes.
Hey, fellas. Here's some yarmulkes for some of you to wear. It's the custom. Now, there ain't enough to go around, so the rest of you tie 4 knots in the corners of a handkerchief.
Make a skull cap that way, you hear me?
Sure, guys.
All right.
Anything you say, sure.
I could see the Puerto Rican boys looking around, up at the simulated blue sky with its small white clouds and painted birds, at the heavy black prayer books, and at the list of names over the altar of Jewish boys in the armed service. The Reverend Franklin and a colleague were waiting on the altar. Then the war veteran came down the aisle carrying the American flag. All the boys stood up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now then, first I want to know, have any of you boys got any gripes you want to get off your mind? If so, now's the time.
Sure.
Go ahead.
The other day in front of the synagogue, when you guys chased us away, we weren't doing anything. Why did you have to chase us? It's a free country.
Well, why did you ask for a nickel?
We just asked. We weren't doing anything. No harm in asking.
Well, one of you hit a 60-year-old man on the head. What did you do that for?
He got in our way. We didn't mean to hit him.
Reverend Franklin, have you got anything you'd like to say?
Well, let's all try to forget what's happened. Not very much has happened. It's just that we got excited, and well, that's not surprising in times like these. But let's just remember this. Jews, Puerto Ricans, Spaniards, Negroes, all belong to groups of people that have been hounded in various parts of the world. And the same has been true at some time of almost every group of people. For some it happened long ago, and for others more recently. But just remember one thing. Overseas, we're fighting for democracy and freedom. Let's win the fight here, too. Now, let's shake hands, be Americans, and work together.
Gaucho, anything you'd like to say?
Gaucho got up and walked down to the front of the synagogue. A thin figure with his wide-brimmed hat pushed back on his head. He put his hands in his pockets, stood with his feet apart, and looked at the boys.
I got nothing to say. We're not fighting Jewish boys because they're Jewish. We can forget it if they can forget things. We don't want no trouble.
I wonder if we could take a vote on a permanent peace.
Why not?
All those in favor of extending the truce into a permanent peace, raise your hands. Well, I guess it's unanimous.
Okay, then. Let's all go down to the jukebox and have a Coke. Come on. We'll protect you.
And now we take pleasure in presenting on the Eternal Light Rabbi Herman M. Cohen of the Temple of Aaron Congregation of St. Paul, Minnesota. Rabbi Cohen.
In the preamble of the United Nations Charter, drawn up at San Francisco and now seeking ratification, we find the following statement. We, the peoples of the United Nations, have agreed to the present charter to practice tolerance and to live together in peace with one another as good neighbors. America is a microcosm and includes in considerable numbers people of various races, ethnic groups, and creeds. The same desideratum of the United Nations applies with equal intensity to us. There can be no durable international peace unless we have intranational understanding and harmony. To achieve this, we must eradicate suspicion and fear from our midst. It is essential that we cultivate confidence in humanity. A Jewish sage taught that everyone should judge his fellow in the scale of merit. Suspicion is a relic of primitive society which regarded every stranger as an enemy. Many of our fears turn out to be groundless. What we call an act of aggression is often an innocent prank in which there is no intention to do us harm, but the comedy of errors may lead to the tragedy of terrors. We must cultivate respect for differences. We need to realize that our ways are as strange to others as theirs are to us. The story is told of a Chinese youth who obtained permission from his employer to attend a Chinese funeral. Before the boy left, the employer asked him if he was going to place food on the grave of his deceased friends. "Yes, of course," said the boy. "This is our custom." "And when do you expect your friend to come up and eat this food?" The lad was embarrassed for a moment and then retorted, "Just as soon as you expect the friend you buried last week to come up and smell the flowers with which you decorated his grave." America is a potential blessing to every group and to each individual in that group. Our help and goodwill can actualize it. In gratitude for the boon which America has been to us, we must strive to make it a blessing to our neighbor. We on the home front must avoid the snares and pitfalls of group indictment and group condemnation. Every person must be judged on the basis of what he achieves or fails to achieve. The fact that he is a member of a group which is white or black, native or foreign-born, Christian or Jew, is irrelevant. Our fighting men have learned this essence of democracy. The men in the bomber who are in the vicinity of the target are not concerned with the race or religion of the navigator or pilot or bombardier or gunner. They realize that the safety of all depends upon each man's ability to do his part at the critical moment. They have learned to appreciate each member of the crew on his merit. We could mold a greater America by forgetting about race, religion, and land of origin, and by stressing participation, friendship, and opportunity. This is the spirit of America. This is the spirit of religion and the harbinger of peace, security, and happiness.
Thank you, Rabbi Herman M. Cohen. The Jukebox Boys in the Synagogue, dramatized for the Eternal Light by Joseph Liss, was suggested by a feature story by Sophie Smoliar of the newspaper PM. All names were fictional. The music was composed by Morris Momorsky and conducted by Milton Tatum. Cantor Robert H. Siegel of the Beacon Street Temple, Brookline, Massachusetts, was the soloist. The reporter was Gene Ellen, and Joel was played by Frank Maxwell. The entire production was under the direction of Frank Papp. This program has been a public service presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations, and was brought to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. The Eternal Light came to you from our Radio City studios in New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light. This public service program comes to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today is based on the novel Hear Ye Sons by Irving Feynman and adapted for radio by Alan Lomax. Juano Hernandez is featured as the narrator.
Hear ye, sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father.
It is as if I have lived two lives. The second began 40 years ago when I came to America. And that life my children can understand. But my first life, my youth in the old country, is a lost world to my children, to Naomi and Janet and the others. When I try to tell them of this lost world of my youth, they shake their heads indulgently, as if I were recounting some dream I have had.
Father's telling one of his stories again. But they're good stories, Naomi. Nonsense, Janet. They're old-fashioned. They have nothing to do with us now. They're...
Vestiges of the past?
Well, yes, that's just what they are. Father's not vestigial.
Obviously not. I am, after all, a fairly successful American lawyer.
Then why don't you leave that horrid old apartment on the river and your old Talmudist friends for a good neighborhood near us?
Because I like my old friends and their old-fashioned ways. I could no more give them up than I could my own youth.
I agree with you, Father.
Thank you, my dear.
And your stories, Father, they're wonderful. They really are. Grand material for a book. Father, you really ought to write them down. I mean, really.
For Naomi, I am an old fogey, and even Janet appreciates my story as if it were a mellow ruin of some rare old print. And that is as it should be. This first life of mine is a sort of museum piece. But perhaps if I set it down, my children may see its strange beauty and terror. For it was no dream, but a life that was lived. And so I say, as Moses once said to the children of Israel, ask now of the days that are past, which were before thee, whether there hath been any such thing. The town where I was born in Russian Poland was a peaceful little country place. The natives of the district were simple, kindly peasants. On market days they came to town to buy and sell, and afterwards they sat in my father's store, stuffing their pipes with strong, acrid tobacco and puffing out clouds of smoke, and their talk was slow and concerned with the eternal things of the land.
Why is this so, Theodore? Calves are slaughtered constantly and colts are never killed.
Well,
why then are there more cows than horses?
A good question, my brother.
And there would ensue a few moments of thoughtful and smoky silence among the peasants. Then Theodore would shift his massive thighs and remove his pipe deliberately from his lips.
There are more colts than horses in our district, dear brother, because horses are more often stolen.
Ah, I see.
And the rascally czarist officials, in exchange for bribes, even help the thieves.
That is true, Theodore. I recall such an incident myself.
Yes, these peasants of Russian Poland were simple, kindly folk, and we dwelt among them in peace and neighborliness. Like them, we suffered under the laws of the Tsar, except in our case, the laws were more ruthless. Like them, we interpreted many things that happened as signs and portents and miracles. Indeed, I myself was born according to the account of my parents, with the might of the rabbi. My mother often told how she went one day to wise old Rabbi Hennick.
Peace be to you, Rabbi Hennick.
And to you, peace, daughter.
I come to you in great trouble, Rabbi.
Is it some frightening dream, daughter?
No.
Has your family broken the Sabbath law?
None of these things, Rabbi.
Speak, daughter, and ease your heart.
I want a son, Rabbi. A Kaddish. One to pray for me when I am gone. And two, I wish to please my husband. 4 daughters I have borne him, and he says that he is content, but I know his heart, Rabbi, and in his heart he is not happy. A man must have a son, and in this I have failed my husband.
You are a good woman, Rebecca, and the Lord will help you. It is written that works of charity have more value than sacrifices, and it is said in the Talmud that the noblest of all charities is enabling the poor to earn a livelihood. Hence I tell you to gather together 52 rubles and distribute them among the poor. And perhaps God will help you, and you will have a son.
And my mother followed the instructions of Rabbi Hennick, distributed money to the needy, and collected blessings for her interest. God listened to those blessings of the poor, and, as my mother used to say, I was born in a fortunate hour. My father danced and shouted and spread a feast for his friends at a ceremony of the covenant of Abraham.
And his name will be called in Israel. And his name will be called in Israel. Well, Samuel, have you chosen a name for your son?
Rabbi?
A name for your son.
Why, name? Rabbi, may the Lord forgive me, but I've been so happy I've not thought of it. Rabbi, what shall I call my dear son?
Let him be given the name Rachel gave to her firstborn.
Yes, so it shall be. Drink, friends, drink in health. For this day I am blessed with a son in my house, and his name is called Joseph.
I remember a day, a bright and shining day, when I was 9. I had been given a new fringed undervest of silk with blue and white stripes. On my feet were new Russian boots with painted heels. And, delighting in the June sunshine, I strolled out of the Jewish quarter into the town park, strolled out under the trees. I hummed a song because of the joy I felt. I looked at the shade trees and at the fine ladies and the gentlemen, and my heart overflowed. And I hoped that some of these ladies and gentlemen would notice the fine squeak of my boots. Then...
Here! Stop, Jew, stop! You pesky little Jew, don't you know you ain't allowed here?
No, sir.
This park is for Christians, not for such as you. Do you hear?
Yes, sir.
And just to see you remember your place, we'll take you to see the magistrate.
No,
Come along now.
policeman,
Come along.
Please don't put me in jail.
But the huge policeman had tight hold on my collar and dragged me off to the station. The news of my arrest traveled like a flash to the ghetto, and my father came running to plead for me before the magistrate.
What do you want, Jew?
My son, your lordship.
Your son? Don't talk nonsense, Jew. What do I have to do with your son? Come, make yourself clear.
The boy, Joseph, your lordship, he's my son.
Oh, this young rascal, this impudent, lawless brat, this young criminal?
He's only 9, Your Honor.
Well, not too young to learn that he's a Jew. Not too young to know his place. Stop sniveling. Stop it. I'll have no weeping and moaning in my court.
Hush. Your lordship, I have another errand here. My people have asked me to bring you a slight token of their esteem for your learning and your sense of justice. I pray that you do not hold this gift an impertinence on our part.
Why, no, not at all. Not at all. Most respectful. Most respectful indeed. Yes, and now for this brat of yours. He's broken the law. The Tsar's law, and he must be punished.
He's only a child, Your Lordship.
Well, then, a light sentence for your good manners, Jew. You may stay in jail in his place, 1 day and 1 night, and see to it that your brat learns that he's a Jew. Next case.
I had learned. The scene burned into my heart forever. The fat, mocking policeman, the filthy jail, and my father sitting quietly in the corner intoning the Psalms. Yes, I had learned that in my sleepy country town, snowbound in the winter and mudbound in the summer, there was a wall beyond which I could not go. And what was there then for a young Jew, my children have asked me? Well, there was the cheder.
Mapach, Mapach, Pashto, Zakei,
The cheder school, where good old Reb Sholem taught me from the time I was 5 until I was 13. And after the cheder, there was the Beis HaMidrash, where every day I lived elevated and apart in the world of subtle learning, that is, the Torah. The years slipped by almost unnoticed, and by the time I was 18, I was, in truth, more away from this world than in it. Then one day, as I stood dreaming at the window, I saw a girl walking in the sunshine.
How beautiful are her feet and sandals.
And as I spoke these words, I blushed to the roots of my hair and turned to find the eye of my father on me.
And Abiah said of the evil one, "Scholars, he tempts more than anyone else." No, Joseph, do not look so ashamed. For it is also written at 18 to the nuptial canopy. And to be unmarried is to live without joy, without blessing, without kindness, without religion, without peace. Yes, Joseph, it's time I arranged a match for you.
From that time on, I lived in a world that was strange to me. I scarcely ate. I walked as if afloat. The little puffs of dust raised by my feet were supporting clouds. And one day, I came home to find a stranger talking with my father in the parlor. I greeted him as calmly as I could.
Peace be to you.
And to you, peace. A fine-looking son you have, Samuel.
He is a good boy.
My son, I've heard that you are a very studious young man. Let me hear something of your learning so that I may know if you are worthy to be the bridegroom of my Ruth.
I felt like a schoolboy on exhibition, but not wishing to disappoint my parents who were looking at me with pride, I launched at once into a discussion of the Talmud and answered many difficult questions. I displayed the wealth of my studies, and when I was finished, my prospective father-in-law turned to my father, beaming with delight.
Samuel, I thought the bridegroom's price you set for your son was too high, but on the contrary, I would pay 10 times as much to have such a son-in-law in my house.
Thank you, Arya.
No, let me rather thank you, Samuel. And now, let's not put off the wedding forever. If you agree, I say 6 weeks from now.
And so it was agreed, and Arya Weiss returned to Mishinetz to arrange the wedding. That night I went out of the house to walk by myself and collect my whirling thoughts. I passed the daughters of Aaron the baker. They were thick-bodied, red-faced, and their voices were like the voices of crows. I shuddered as I hurried past them, and the dreams I had had of a gentle princess turned into a nightmare. In vain, I tried to convince myself that personal beauty was not important in man or woman, but it was no good. I could not bear the thought of a homely bride. And although I spoke to no one of this, I was still plunged in gloomy thoughts when, 6 weeks later, we set out for Missionetz and the wedding. And so we came to Missionetz and the house of my father-in-law. The room was warm and crowded. The wedding guests were dancing, and I was almost suffocated in my anxiety actually to see my bride-to-be.
Come, make way for the bridegroom. Let him see his bride. Let him see his little beauty.
And the crowd of maidens drew aside, and I trembled as I looked up. Then I saw Ruth for the first time. A slender figure, white throat rising above a chain of gold, round, soft chin, delicate lips, wide open dark eyes, set in a pale oval face. And in that instant, I saw a flicker over her gentle face, a look of dread relieved, a look that was a reflection of the feeling that was in my own heart. At that moment, I was certain that God was good.
She is a sweet girl, my son, as tender as she is beautiful.
A rose of Sharon, my boy, and now to be yours.
But there is a question you must answer. Shall the bride's hair be cut short in the fashion of the old ways or be left uncut?
My voice trembled, but I summoned all my dignity and said,
It is not proper to do anything to disturb the joy of the bride. Let it go until after the wedding.
Ruth looked at me gratefully. Then I placed the silken veil over her head and was led out of the house into the street where the guests were gathering.
Your right foot first, Joseph.
Yes, my son, so that the home will be fortunate.
Play, musicians. Play your liveliest tune.
The way was across the market square, where the file of black-coated men and the procession of gaily dressed women converged on a canopy set up before the synagogue. All raised their candles high in the air as the rabbi, his face radiant under the pointed skullcap, began his sermon.
This, my children, is the most momentous hour of your lives. You are about to make a covenant of partnership with the Almighty.
I glanced at Ruth
and you
beside
must know
me,
that all your life
mysterious and
and all
beautiful,
your being
under
is
the folds of her veil. And my heart quickened at the thought of how she had looked into my eyes.
shall be. Remember that you are going to be the collaborators in the endless story of creation that began in Genesis. So God will sustain you with all that is good. Amen.
And as the musicians played a plaintive march, Ruth was guided so that she moved slowly about me under the canopy. 7 times she circled around me so that I felt wound in the white web of her mysterious presence until she and I became part of the endless turnings of the universe. At length she stood again at my right hand, and I slipped the ring on her finger.
Repeat after me, my son. Hareat Mekudeshes li Betabas zu Kedas Moshe v'Yisroel.
2 goblets of wine were handed to the rabbi, and he began the chant of the 7 blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagofen.
Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who created all manner of joy and gladness, the joys of triumph and peace, the rejoicing of love, the delight of the bridegroom and the bride, of the dance and song, of brotherhood and friendship.
In the moonlight, the musicians leading the way, Ruth and I walked back across the square to her father's house. The whole town was dancing and singing around us. Indeed, it seemed to me everything was dancing. The air, the candles, the very stars. And we went in to supper, and afterwards danced until morning came. One evening at sundown, when we'd been married about 2 weeks, Ruth came into the room where I was reading.
Husband.
It was the first time Ruth had ever called me husband. The letters on the page swam before my eyes.
Husband.
I stared harder at my book and pretended not to notice her, although indeed I had heard her first footstep on the stair below. I had heard the light rustle of her dress as she entered the door.
Joseph, my husband.
Ruth laid her hand on mine, and my heart sounded like thunder in my ears.
Joseph, aren't you weary of your book?
Yes, very weary.
When you didn't answer, I thought...
You were wrong. I only wanted to hear you call me husband again.
I knew that.
How?
Because I know you so well, my husband. We're not strangers anymore. We're like old friends. But, oh, Joseph, I was so frightened of you before I saw you.
Why?
Because I thought you might be...
Horrible?
Yes. How did you know, Joseph?
Because I was afraid, too. Afraid you wouldn't be pretty. And now it seems to me I've known you all my life.
I know. I can't remember when I first saw you, Joseph. And now it seems... Don't laugh at me. It seems just as if we'd been born together.
And indeed, it was so. For were we not born together into manhood and womanhood? We who had been just simple children before our marriage. And thinking what a miracle had befallen us, I kissed Ruth, led her downstairs, and went to the synagogue for evening prayers. Half the heavens were steeped in the blue portent of a clear and starry night. But in the west, the sunset sky was aflame with the joyousness of my spirit. This is the way my life began, in a land that is so far away that it is like another world to my American children. Another world or a dream, and yet it was no dream, but a life that was lived. Hear ye, sons, and ask now of the days that are past, which were before thee, whether there hath been any such thing.
The dramatic portion of our Eternal Light program today was based on the novel Hear Ye, Sons by Irving Feynman, author of Dr. Adams, Jacob, and other novels. And now we take pleasure in presenting U.S. Army Chaplain Isidore Signer of Chanute Field, who will talk from Chicago.
This dramatization pictures the customs and practices current in Jewish life only a generation or so ago. They, in turn, reflect the lofty conceptions which Israel evolved of the relationship of man and woman to each other, and of both to God and to the community of which they are a part. The ideas concerned with love, marriage, and the family provided the Jew with pivotal values, enabling him to keep his balance when buffeted by the winds of cruel chance and mishap. In a day when marriage vows are apt to be lightly taken and just as lightly kept, it is well to think of marriage as neither conquest nor even partnership, but as collaboration with God. That moment, which is at the same time the culmination of courtship and the beginning of family life, is Kiddushin, meaning not marriage, but sanctification, as if to say that the Jewish home should be not even castle, but shrine. Kiddushin implies that the holiness of the relationship depends not upon any formula uttered under the canopy, but on the frame of mind with which the man and woman enter the married state. In the Hebrew, Ishon, woman, is synonymous with Bayis, the home. To be sure, they're husband and wife, entities engaged in a romantic and often great enterprise. But as parents, they represent the repositories of the traditions of the race. Hence, their offspring are not only bonim children, but bonim builders as well. Love, says Maimonides, is the motive which gives all human action its true ethical value. But love by itself is not firm enough to form the foundation of life, whether in individuals who must strive for self-fulfillment or in society which cannot afford to tolerate wrongdoing. In all human relationships, love must be governed by disciplines. Otherwise, love may fail. Love succeeds and fulfills itself when in marriage the disciplines of human relationships are practiced in the building of the home and the rearing of children. It wasn't merely a naive conceit that prompted our forefathers to view marriages as made in heaven, when they said that 40 days before the formation of a child, a heavenly voice announces, "This person is to marry so-and-so's daughter." They believe that as children of God, we are to exercise order and planning in our relationships, and to be held together by something more coercive than voluntary affection. Surely that is why they taught that when a man and woman merit it by their actions and behavior, the divine presence dwells in their midst. For marriage is neither conquest nor partnership, but in that union God occupies first place. He's the third party in the relationship whose prime purpose is to make for the continuation and preservation of the race. Men and women are collaborators with him in the work of creation. Could any loftier conception of love, marriage, and the family ever be evolved by the human mind?
Thank you, Chaplain Signer. Next week, The Eternal Light presents the concluding portion of our adaptation of Irving Feynman's novel, Hear Ye Sons. Music for today's program was composed by Morris Momorsky and conducted by Milton Catons. Cantor Robert H. Siegel of the Beacon Street Temple, Brookline, Massachusetts, was the soloist. Juano Hernandez was featured as the narrator. The entire production was under the direction of Frank Papp. This program is a public service of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations and is presented under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Shema Yisrael.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The the eternal light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light. This public service program is presented under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Today we bring you the second part of our radio adaptation of the novel Hear Ye Sons by Irving Feynman. Juano Hernandez is featured as the narrator.
Hear ye, sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father.
I am 68, an age when a man remembers his youth, an age when a man wishes that his children understood him. I try to make them see that this father of theirs, this fairly successful American lawyer, grew from a studious young Polish Talmudist in a world they do not know. I tell them how I grew up and married in the old country and how I fled to America. And they listen as if I were recounting a dream. But this was no dream, but a life that was lived. It was in the first year of my marriage. I was 18, living with my wife's parents in the little town of Miszynets in Tsarist, Poland. We were in the fast of Esther, and the morning was one of burning frost. In the synagogue, I had just doffed my prayer shawl when an old Jew in a ragged coat came in. His beard was frozen, and his mustache dripped with ice.
Peace, Grandfather.
And to you, peace, my boy.
This is bitter weather for travelers.
Aye, bitter weather for old bones. In this season, an old man like myself should be home with his grandchildren.
You are a stranger in our town.
The poor are strangers everywhere. I hope you will never learn that, my son. But when a man has a daughter to be married and no dowry money, he must travel the roads and beg if need be.
You are cold and weary, Grandfather. Come to my house and we'll get you warm and full of food.
But this is the fast of Esther.
Grandfather, you have forgotten your Torah, where it is told that Abraham let God himself stand waiting while he fed the hungry travelers.
Oh, my son, you are as learned in the Torah as you are kind-hearted. I'll gladly stretch my toes before your fire.
I led the old man to my house, and my wife, Ruth, set cheese and eggs, herring and bread and brandy out for him.
Young man, I understand now why you are of such a fine disposition. Your wife is beautiful and a fine cook.
I know how lucky I am.
You have made a feast for me, daughter, and in return I have nothing to give you but advice. If you'll allow an old man...
We'd be grateful.
Well then, my dear girl, in your condition, you must avoid the sight of anything ugly and unclean. For it is said of Rabbi Yochanan... What have I said? What's the matter?
Ruth had blushed scarlet and had run to me and hidden her head on my breast. I looked at her in confusion. What had the old man meant? Then I saw her eyes, and my heart leaped with happiness, so that I could not speak. Thus I learned that my wife was with child. And thus it was that at 19, I listened to the cry of a woman in labor, of which it was said that it travels from one end of the world to the other. And when Ruth and I looked on our little daughter, Naomi, it seemed to us that she was as beautiful as Rabbi Yochanan of the legend. Life was good, and my home was a temple of love, and love itself a fount of godliness. Then, in 1887, I was called to the provincial capital to be examined for 5 years military service. It was a time of unrest, especially in the universities, and many young men were being put in the army for reasons not military. I was ushered before a red-faced czarist official.
Well, Doctor, what is your report?
Underweight, tubercular type. Chest measurement is below the required minimum.
But this is a Jew. Are you using the special adjusted standards for Jews?
Oh, yes, but even with those, the measurement is below military requirement. Distinctly tubercular type.
Unfit for military duty, huh?
Yes, sir.
And yet some of these little Jews know how to make trouble. Right, Doctor?
Oh, yes, sir.
Well, then, what do you say we put him in the army out of harm's way?
Well, sir, my examination...
I'll accept him on my responsibility.
Quite right, sir.
Off with you, Jew. For 5 years you'll be a soldier in the army of the Tsar, if you last that long.
When I said goodbye to Ruth and my little one and all those I loved, I felt as if I would never see them again. For although the Russian Empire was not at war, the 5 years' service that the Tsar could take from a man's life could well be the end of him, if he happened to be a Jew. For then the Tsar's rule reserved for him special consideration. With other new recruits, I was taken to a lonely northern station somewhere in a treeless and a frozen landscape, marched for miles through the snow to a filthy barracks. Standing there, half frozen, half conscious, I became aware of a loutish, brutal face staring into mine.
What are you doing here?
I have come to serve the Tsar.
And what about your Jewish God? Will you serve him too?
God may be served anywhere, sir. Here I serve the government.
The sergeant spat in contempt. Then he unbuttoned my jacket and pointed at my fringed undergarment.
What's this thing?
A Jew must wear a talus cotton like this, sir.
He plucked a silken strand from the fringe and flitched me across the face with it, staring hard into my eyes and smiling contemptuously. He knew he had desecrated my talus coton, but he knew also that I dared say nothing. A dozen times that night, the sergeant roused us from our sleep. Lying drunk in his bed, he amused himself bellowing orders at us and keeping us scurrying and stumbling through the barracks. Next day, we were marched round the frozen parade grounds, the sweat freezing on our bodies. Then we were given our first lesson in the soldier's catechism.
Now tell me, my dear friends, what's a soldier? Don't you know? Jews in college.
A soldier is a man of low rank whose duty it is to endure hunger and cold and all other sufferings he may be subjected to in line of duty, and if need be, give up his life for the Tsar.
The sergeant walked up to a poor, illiterate peasant, one Anton Radom, a man who had been in the army for 2 years and was still in his first stage of training.
Now, dear Private Radom, I have an easy question for you, yes. You get 2 pounds of bread each day. How much do you have in a year? Come now, think.
The peasant sat silent, dull fear staring out of his cow-like eyes.
You don't answer, huh? You ox, you swine. Well, answer this, then. How many days in a year?
I don't know, sir. I can't seem to think.
Next, you Jew. How many pounds of bread a year?
20 pud and 2 pounds, sir.
Very good, Jew. Since you're so well informed, you'll help me teach this blockhead Radom. You will help?
If I can, sir.
The first lesson is now, Jew. Give him one in the jaw.
Strike him, sir?
That's an order. Well?
Sick at heart, I raised my fist and landed a blow on Radham's face. He did not even wince.
That's no kind of a blow for a soldier. You've insulted him with your ladylike slap. I'll show you how to strike a soldier.
Thus, by the sergeant's special system, either a wrong or a right answer from me could bring me blows and kicks and curses. Thus, I served the Tsar. Then one day we were inspected by our commandant. He asked me several questions and was impressed by my answers.
Good, good. Your company?
13th, sir.
Creed?
The faith of Moses, sir.
You know German?
Yes, sir.
I see. Captain, I suggest you make this man company clerk. We could get more out of him as a clerk than carrying a gun on his thin shoulders.
A good idea, sir, but a new regulation excludes Jews from office work.
I see. For what other occupation you feel yourself fitted?
Perhaps hospital orderly?
Regulation excludes them from that, too, sir.
Can nothing further be done with him, then?
No, sir.
The colonel shrugged his shoulders and turned away. The life of cruelty, bestiality, and persecution continued. We Jews were allowed our Sabbath meetings together, but no one knew how long this would continue. One day, the Day of Atonement, I went to a nearby stream, stripped, and washed myself clean in cold water. I tried to throw off all resentful thoughts and renewed my trust in the Almighty. The sun dropped low. Dressing quickly in the chill air, I went to the barn that was our synagogue. Most of the Jewish soldiers were already gathered.
We're waiting for you, Joseph. You're just the man we need for the reader.
Inside our synagogue, it was warm and bright. Candles had been lit. Each man was putting on, over his uniform, the loose white robe and the striped prayer shawl. Some had begun to read from the thick prayer books. Gone was every sign of their ignoble slavery. They stood with dignity, free souls returned to the judgment of their Maker. A light shone in every face. I put on the robe and shawl. In my mind's eye, I could see Ruth at home, sitting alone with our child on this Day of Atonement, a tear falling from my wife's dark eyes. I took my place. We began the Kol Nidre.
Joseph, what is it? A soldier from your company is at the door. The captain orders you to report at once to the rifle range.
Why?
No reason.
I won't come.
You know what it could mean.
Even the official regulations provide for our release on this day. I won't leave the synagogue.
I'll tell him.
We passed the night in the synagogue, in study, in talk. The candles burned down, dripping warm tears that congealed in the sconces. I thought of the 4 years yet to come in an army dedicated to oppression.
And be thou silent, O my soul, to those who curse me. Frustrate the devices of those...
At dawn, I led the morning prayer. Thus began the long day of fasting and penitence.
Be acceptable to thee, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Grant peace to us and to all Israel.
When I had finished the prayer, Mendel tapped me on the arm.
The captain has sent several men. You're to report at once for special target practice.
I can't. The regulations...
He says the regulations are being set aside.
I won't leave.
You've made your decision. We'd better hide you in the hayloft. We'll talk later.
I have made my decision. I'm not going back to the barracks. I'm going to run away to America.
They'll catch you, Joseph. You'll be sent to Siberia. You know what that is.
I'll take the risk. 4 more years of this, I've never lived through it. We have no ties in this land. Why should I serve the Tsar and serve hatred? An army that oppresses even its own people. A Jew has no chance in this land. Perhaps someday he will have, but I cannot wait for that.
Well, then you'll need some things. Let me see. Levy, run to our friend Dimitri in town and get civilian clothes. Quick. Now, Paul, go and ask Gregor to buy a ticket at the station.
Little Mendel stood there and gave orders like a colonel. Mendel Gottliebe, my friend, may the Lord preserve him. By midnight, he had me on the train, dressed in civilian clothes, with money and forged papers in my pocket. Dressed as a Russian merchant, I edged my way into a compartment of the train bound for Struf. Sick fear laid hold of my heart, and the rhythm of the southbound train seemed to say,
Siberia, 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 Siberia.
I sat until morning in fear, but also dreaming of home and of Ruth, and of a life of human dignity. Early next morning at Struf, I found I had 5 hours to wait for the train that would carry me south. It was a town outside the pale for Jews. The streets were crowded, and I knew no place to go. I was afraid to speak to anyone. There was a gendarme on the first corner. I walked past him with a step that I hoped was firm.
What do you want of me, officer?
Why, nothing, Excellency. I was whistling at that devil of a coachman.
I see. I thought I had broken some infernal rule.
Oh, not at all, Excellency.
Your good health, officer.
And yours, sir.
I had behaved like a fool. My body was drenched with icy sweat. I was trembling in every limb. I must find a place to hide. I must. It seemed to me hours later I had passed a score of gendarmes and officers when I came to a little shop with the Star of David in the window. I pushed open the door.
I'm coming. What is it, sir, that Chaim Sholem can do for you?
Father, I'm a stranger here, a Jew. I'm waiting for a train, and I must have something to eat and a place to rest.
Oh, you're among friends here. Come in, sit down. I'll have my wife light the samovar and fix a couple of eggs. Martha, we have company. Fix a bite to eat.
I'll never forget that good couple. The hot tea, the comfort of speaking of the Torah in my own tongue. Meanwhile, the old couple looked at my soldiers' boots and asked no questions, although my presence in their house meant the risk of imprisonment for them. When it was time for the train, the old man insisted on going with me.
You wait for me on the platform, son. I'll get your ticket. You see, I know the ticket seller. Go along now. I'll take care of everything. Here is your ticket, son, and when you get to Bialystok, ask for the shop of Altman, the silversmith. He is a good man and will help you. Goodbye, son, and God be with you.
Another sleepless night, then Bialystok, the shop of Altman, the silversmith. And finally, I was safe in the wagon of a trader rolling down the road to Missionetz, toward home. At the edge of the village at midnight, I jumped down from the wagon and walked home through the silent streets. I tapped on the window. Ruth came running to the door, and by the time I had stepped inside, her arms were about my neck. There was Ruth, with her new quietness and beauty. There was my little daughter, Naomi, whom I hardly knew. There were 1,000 things to be done and said, and there was time only to make plans for my escape, and for how Ruth would follow me to America. The next morning, 3 hours before dawn, Jan, the peasant, Jan, the old friend, came for me in his cart.
Quiet there, Trichka. Quiet, girl. Are you ready, Joseph?
I'm ready, Jan.
Get in the back and hide under the straw. Quick now. The patrol is on the road all night, those long noses. Now, when I say jump, Jump, understand?
I understand.
There was a mist. 5 minutes later, the world had shrunk to a small circle in which the little cart moved mysteriously through the black woods. It began to rain. For a long time, I sat in the straw and listened to Jan humming.
Joseph, the patrol, jump!
I ran into the woods and flung myself on the ground under the dripping bushes. I lay there trying to burrow into the ground like a snake while the patrol rode up.
Hey there, Farmer! What are you doing out on the road at such an hour?
Your Excellencies. My old woman says to me yesterday, she says, Jan, go to Australia. But how could I go with my cart broken? So
I don't care about you or your old woman. Why are you on this road at night?
I tried to tell you. Yesterday, my old woman, she tell me, Jan...
Silence, you stupid peasant. Silence! There's no harm in this idiot. Let's go on, boys. I'd like a drink.
Come out, Joseph. All safe now. Come out and let's ride to the border. Stupid peasant, eh? Stupid Tsar's police.
In the dawn, we got out of the cart and walked across the fields together. Jan said nothing, and yet I know he felt a bond between us. He was showing me the way to freedom. Above us, the birds wheeled and whistled against the blue sky. Then Jan stopped and smiled at me and pointed.
There. Look, Joseph, my friend. There it is.
He was pointing at a ditch a few yards away. This ditch was the thing I had come so far to find. This scratch in the earth, scarcely 3 feet deep, this tiny, muddy mark across the green fields, was the border. I began to run.
Don't run!
It is past. It is past. It is past.
Jan laughed. Peasants, looking up from their work, began to laugh, and so did I. The blue sky rang with the laughter, and I was free. The rest of the road was easy. A tale not worth the telling. But the end was something I shall never forget. I came up on the deck of the ship after many days of storm. Passengers were gathered at the rail of the great ship. There was the smell of land in the air. And there in the sunshine, the wide harbor sparkled and danced in the sun as the arm of my new land reached out to receive the ship. My heart sang. The words of the prophet came to my mind, and I spoke them aloud for all to hear.
Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who loosest the ties of the bound.
The dramatic portion of our Eternal Light program today was based on the novel Hear Ye Sons by Irving Feynman, author of Dr. Adams, Jacob, and other novels. Now we present a brief talk by Mr. Irving Feynman, who will speak to you from Hollywood.
When I wrote the story, Hear Ye Sons, I was moved to tell how Jews in the 19th century, living under the persecution of the tyrannical Tsars, had steadfastly maintained within the oppressive confines of their ghettos the eternal light of the Jewish spirit. It happened that this book was first published in 1933, the year in which another tyrant, Hitler, came to power and began the most terrible persecution of Jews in all history, which we now know resulted in the torture and slaughter of millions of Jewish men, women, and children. This persecution, however, was different from all others, not merely in its size and virulence, but in the fact that for the first time in history, the persecution of Jews was not just an isolated and unexplainable phenomenon, but a part of a tyrannical attack on the free spirit of all humanity. Hitler made no bones about saying that in his war on democratic freedom, the Jews were his enemy number one. We are thus indebted to Hitler, who tortured and slaughtered not only Jews, but millions of freedom-loving Czechs and Russians, Scandinavians and Poles, Dutchmen and Frenchmen, for making clear for the first time that the survival of the Jewish spirit is closely related to the survival of free democracy everywhere in the world. Here in the United States of America, that spirit has contributed richly to the culture of our great nation from its very beginnings, when the Puritans, steeped in the Old Testament, first landed on these shores. And it is not without significance that the two great symbols of liberty in this sweet land bear inscriptions in which Jews may justly take pride. On the old Liberty Bell in Independence Hall at Philadelphia is a verse from Leviticus, "Proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." And a bronze plaque in the base of the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor recites the poem by Emma Lazarus, which ends, "Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Like the hero of Hear Ye Sons, millions of Jews have found freedom and peace within that blessed door. But unlike the hero of Hear Ye Sons, many of them and their children have suffered from the mistaken notion that to be better Americans they must forget their spiritual inheritance. That is a mistake which has sprung mainly from ignorance of the true spirit of American democracy and of its indebtedness to that inheritance. But in these times, when not merely the United States but the whole civilized world is bent on the realization of the dream of an ancient Hebrew prophet who said, "Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more," it ill becomes any Jew in America who has been spared the necessity of suffering torture or death for the preservation of democratic freedom to be ignorant now of his great tradition. So I repeat, hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel, your father.
The Eternal Light has brought you another in a special summer series of dramatizations, which we call Stories of a People. The music was composed by Morris Momorsky and conducted by Milton Katams. Juano Hernandez was featured as the narrator, and Jack Lloyd appeared as Joseph. Cantor Robert H. Siegel of the Beacon Street Temple in Brookline, Massachusetts, was the soloist. The entire production was under the direction of Frank Patt. This program came to you as a public service of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations, and was presented under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. This is the National Broadcasting Company.